Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to another episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So, Jim, it's just us flying solo today. Well,
yeah,
wait, two of us flying solo. Is that possible? I guess
Tandem? I don't know. Yeah.
since between the two of us, we have the smarts and strength of one normal man. Then I suppose we can be flying solo.
Yeah, well, we haven't done this in a while, and we should play catch up on a bunch of things that we've been talking about in the background, but never get around to talking because we have guests and we have to entertain them and stuff. But I think the show so far, we're almost at the halfway point here, is going well so far. We really appreciate. Just want to say thank you to all the listeners and to all those folks out there who have guested on our show or who are going to be guesting on our show in the near future. Because one of the things I never really expected is the kind of response that we had to this show.
Absolutely.
So many people, I mean, from the movie world, from the aviation world, from the just like going to the movies and watching fun stuff world. So many of these people have reached out and said, I really want to talk to you about stuff that's going on the show. And I have something interesting that you might find interesting. I don't know if what I have is interesting, but they come on and it's just a wonderful thing. We hear about all these different things going on. I've learned a lot doing this show so far. And
yeah, same here. And I'm amazed, as you said, that I didn't ever expect we'd get to the point where we weren't, where begging for guests wasn't a full-time job. I never really, and it's not that I didn't have faith or confidence in it. I knew it was going to be great and wonderful fun. I just didn't expect people to sort of be reaching out to us saying, "Hey, this is pretty cool. Do you think I could come on? And I've got some things to say if you're interested." And it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and just trying to fit them all in. It's been a little bit, it is a surprise, and it's nice to be in that situation that we have so many fascinating guests that people, and then people write to us more and say, I want to hear more about this. I want to hear about what about this and that. Right. So the feedback's been great.
Yeah. And thanks ongoing to everybody who's given us good reviews or said something nice on social media. We get a lot of great responses on Twitter and Facebook, all that good stuff. But the iTunes reviews in particular make a huge difference for us.
Yeah,
so,
it really thanks. Is. We're not working in a vacuum. Well, and speaking of vacuums, we're going to be talking.
Ooh, there's a segue.
There's a segue, smooth as silk. Yeah, but we're going to be talking about that neat little idea that Wilmer had minutes and minutes ago of hiding a vacuum cleaner inside of a rocket pack suitcase. But first, we're going to be looking at. Cliff is still, trying to bask in the glory of being a secret, not quite a superhero, but a hero, a rocketing hero. He's on the level of Iron Man, I would guess.
Right.
He's listening to two ladies at the beginning of this minute talking about how romantic it is that he pulled a clown out of a crashing airplane
and dropped him into a balloon.
Yeah, I'm sure every young girl thinks about, gosh, someday
Yes.
I wish I were a clown in a getting dropped on a balloon. We look at those two girls, perfect Disney extras there, who have speaking roles. So that's pretty neat. They'll get paid more. One of the girls, the one on the left, is wearing a type of hat called a cloche. Cloche meaning the French word for bell. It's kind of a bell-shaped hat. She's a little bit out of style. That style is more from the early 30s. Again, we're kind of getting into that early late 30s crossover thing, kind of like how the GB is a little bit outdated. That
Sure.
cloche hat is a bit outdated for this late in the 30s, but still active. I mean, you could say that maybe that's the hat that she had, and she's comfortable with it. But they all seem to be having a good time on their single day on the set.
Right. Now, do you know where that particular actress is now, by any chance?
Yeah, actually, we've reached out to her a couple of times, but I don't know. We're crossing signals or something. But that's Elle Keats, who is I believe she runs a jewelry store on the main promenade there in Santa Monica. So if you'd like to drop in to the Keats Jewelry Store, tell her that you heard about her on the Rocketeer Minute.
Yeah, exactly. And show up in a Rocketeer costume and rescue her.
Yes.
But do not bodily carry her off and throw her into a balloon.
Yeah, she'll think it's romantic. So there you have a chance.
Exactly.
Right. Anyway, nice seeing them marching around. If I remember correctly from an earlier discussion with Billy, this is one of the earlier episodes. It was an easy drop in thing that they did. So, and it's obviously something that they shot in about an hour. All you had to do is kind of walk around, wander around.
Right. And I love the guy in the background about second 3 or so. He's walking past. He's reacting to the paper. And you know your vintage hats better than I do. I don't know if that's a gadabout or a small fedora or something.
Yeah,
he's right between Billy and Ellie there, and he's just making his mouth just couldn't be further open. He is just stunned by this news, and I don't know if he's reacting or if he's sort of overreacting to the scene. But I guess
that's his 2 seconds of fame, and he's going to play it for all it's worth.
Exactly.
Yeah, it looks like a standard fedora. Kind of a fancy ribbon on the brim, just behind the brim there. He's really working it, huh?
He really is. He's earning his $5 a day or whatever you got at 91. I don't know.
Yeah, and
we're for an extra.
We're also noticing the different papers. He's reading. I've forgotten the paper that he was reading. We saw it in 47.
Yeah. So we were talking about this just a little bit offline, but I love this sort of trilogy of newspapers and reactions here. This is just a brilliantly constructed little thing, and I love that it did happen to fall primarily within this 1 minute. So you've got Cliff there reading it's the Los Angeles Examiner, and it's a PM final, and you've got, of course, you hear the newsboy in the background, yelling extra extra because they had done a special edition of it. Now there's a few of these, and maybe even several of these survive. You do see them on eBay from time to time, and there was one current listing that had a pretty decent photos that let you look at more of the paper. So presuming what's listed out on there on eBay is accurate to what was created for the film, there's a few little interesting things that happen. So number one, and we're still just talking about Cliff's paper here, this Examiner, October 15, 1938. You've got Rocketeer, the big headline above the masthead, man flies without plane, and Rocketeer thrills crowd. And then that story, the picture I'm looking at, you can almost read a lot of it. It's, Chaplin Field, Los Angeles, and basically tells a story of what happened. Lots of other little headlines and other stories. And then the other headline above the fold is Senate sessions continue, but the text of the story is about Germany and the Sudetenland that we talked about with my old friend Eric Flint not too long ago. And then what kind of amused me was that down below the fold, lots of other headlines. Queen visits her subjects on bike. So we can imagine Queen Elizabeth tooling around on a bicycle. A few little things like that, but then there's a subsection that's got this photo of Bigelow holding his Bigelow Air Circus program, getting all the free press, surrounded by cameras with those great Graflex, lightsaber Luke Skywalker lightsaber flash tubes, and then it's Air Circus owner won't reveal hero's identity. And if you really, really squint at the minute we're in, you can see as Cliff picks up the paper, you can see part of that Air Circus owner headline. But the story below that one starts with, I have got a zoomed in one, starts out, a few thousand more United States Marines landed in South Vietnam today, and then just went on and on about the 7th Regimental Landing Team and this and that. So definitely there was a prop maker back then who said nobody is ever going to see this. Or if they do, they'll have fun with it, like Craig Hosking pointed out. But I don't think we were putting a lot of troops into South Vietnam in 1938.
Well, that anyone was aware of.
That's true. That's what they want you to think.
Yeah, getting ready for Doolittle to arrive.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. Then as we leave the Cliff portion of this triptych of newspapers,
right,
we go to a dressing room with Who is the Rocketeer, Hoax or Reality? Right.
So then that paper is that's the Los Angeles Examiner. I was scrubbing to that there. I love that Hoax or Reality thing. So you've got Who is the Rocketeer, Los Angeles Examiner, again, October 15, 1938. And, that great old masthead, character, quality, enterprise, and accuracy is the logo there. And then interesting, too, that it's just stamped right there in the headline, America First, pretty clearly declaring their feelings about sort of the state of the world at that time. We talked a lot about the America First movement. couple of the stories here, you've got Bowron aims axe at Board. So that's a reference to Fletcher Bowron,
Right.
was the 35th mayor of L.A., and he would have been mayor about 3 weeks at this point, but he was the second longest serving mayor after Bradley, served until 53, so he was a pretty big figure in L.A. Probably most famous for starting work on the L.A. freeways and LAX, the airport, but also was at least out of context, certainly somewhat controversial when you look back. He was a very, very sort of rabid proponent of the Japanese internment camps during World War II, sort of taking the Japanese American citizens and putting them into camps, relocation camps. And then also he came out and was supporting amendments to the Selective Service Act, or rather exceptions to it, that said even if you're a Japanese American, even if you're too old or would otherwise have a medical issue that would prevent you from being drafted, he thought they should be drafted anyway, and they just put into non-combat roles. So he was pretty hardcore when it came to the sort of situations around the Japanese Americans at the time. The other headline across the way that is another great little anachronism, perhaps not as much as the Vietnam situation, but that bill gets approval by 64-20. That, I've got the date noted here. That story was printed September 30th, 1958. So it's about 20 years from the future, and it's the Senate vote about whether or not Alaska would become the 49th state. So, but sure enough, there it is. And I didn't mention, but that Bowron story, the Bowron aims axe at Board, did run on September 30th of 38, but it actually ran in the LA Times, not the Examiner. Although it may have been an AP story, so it could have been picked up. The 64-20 Senate vote was definitely an AP story. So, little details.
Yeah, and it's surprising that at least one of them is roughly within the. I mean, it's not exactly the news, but when you're trying to fill up an extra, maybe they were grabbing old wire stories, at least for the Bowron ones. And
that very well could be. And of course, for the prop makers just needing to get, to get something on paper, and of course that great photo of, which that's intriguing to me to try to puzzle out shooting order and things like this, because you've got the photo on the cover of the paper Sinclair is holding of a presumably stuntman Rocketeer, probably suspended from the rig, flying by the grandstands, and whether that was a snapshot taken on set while that was being shot, and if they had enough lead time, or this was just something that was composited together in order to get these props done in time to shoot these scenes. I'm not sure about the sequence there.
Yeah, there's no overlapping lines, so it would be relatively easy to drop something like that together, especially in 1991. That would have been easy Photoshop.
The although under hoax or reality, we've got Malcolm there grinning in his clown makeup and everything else. So it seems like that would have been a fairly elaborate sort of thing to set up and shoot. When it would have been so easy just to grab the snapshot while he was in makeup and on set. So.
Or it could have been a test. It could have been a makeup test at the time.
Oh, that's true too.
So
yeah, could easily have been a makeup test.
And this insert one, this could have been one of the last things ever shot. It's
true.
Relatively easy to do.
Yeah, it could have been. And you just love, Sinclair slaps the paper down and then he yanks the wig off, and he's just mad. He's just so steamed. So Cliff sees the paper. He's pretty proud of himself. Neville sees the paper and he's angry.
Yeah, although I would imagine that Neville would be in his own dressing room. I can't imagine him glowering in front of a group of people.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm trying to figure that out, why there's just this sort of stray makeup table just out and about. And you can see another one there off to the left, sort of in the background.
Yeah.
There'd be a few of these around. But yeah, you would sure think he would be in his own dressing room, but who knows? Maybe somebody just ran up and showed him the newspaper, which I do have to say that, we don't have a strong sense for sort of hours in the day necessarily, but they do seem to get these papers, even the extra editions, printed and distributed very, very quickly.
Yeah, but that's how it was at the time. I mean, during World War II, there were even up to 7 editions in a day.
Wow, 7. I knew there were more than one, but wow.
The Pearl Harbor, I believe the Los Angeles Times produced 7 editions in the one day as more news became available through. Actually, I'm sorry, it's the 7th and the 8th. Going to the next day, but there were so many editions being dropped on top. They had a total of 7 editions being passed out, and really with trying to keep up with what was coming in over the radio. It's like the battle that we have nowadays with newspapers versus the internet. Do you really? Right. It's not unless you get another edition out, you're not going to be the most current. They had the manpower and they had the machines. Those presses were running that quickly just to get these things out, and relying on 72-point type to sell those additional ones out. Every
time I think of headlines, especially around the Pearl Harbor, the Onion did a book called Our Dumb Century, where it was just newspaper stories, as if they had been done by the Onion over the years. And if I remember right, it was their Pearl Harbor issue had whatever point size they were using, probably 300-point type. And the headline was just war, WAR, exclamation point. But it was so big that they had to hyphenate the word war. So it was WA hyphen, and then R is on the next line. They just were so over the top with this gigantic point size.
I was trying to find out how, like, after you came out with an extra edition, what did you call the one after the extra? Was it a continued extra, or is it?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. You notice Cliff's copy of the Examiner is Neville is looking at the regular Examiner, and in a moment we'll see another character looking at an extra of the Times, but Cliff's copy of the Examiner is pretty clearly stamped PM Final. Maybe you have a morning edition, because the Examiner was a morning paper, as I recall.
Yeah. So
then you might have an extra in there somewhere, and then PM Final, I guess, is we're betting there's not going to be any more big news today. But
yeah,
but yeah, if there were, as you said, if there was more than 2, 3, something like that, I'm not sure. Does it become double extra or extra this time we mean it?
Yeah, it's just not. I'm not clear on how these things are, and as we go further into the 21st century, this is going to be definitely a lost art. I don't think any paper will put out an extra edition anymore. It's enough to get. I mean, the papers have been shrinking. I bought a New York Times the other day, and I thought this can't be a New York. It's like an American girl-sized New York Times. They've kind of shrunk in all dimensions. There is obviously an art to all this, and I feel bad that I haven't been able to find more out about how extras were labeled. I know like the Bulldog was the night before, and then you had morning and evening editions of newspapers. I can remember long ago having I was a paper boy for a newspaper in New Jersey, and we would get the Sunday editions. Everything in the paper except for the first section would be delivered on the Thursday to my house, and then we'd have to assemble them on Saturday to put the Sunday, the news part of it in the front, and things like comics and all the ads and stuff were in the back. So we'd have it would be like an insert more than anything else. Just trying to get. I mean, imagine trying to get back like the newsboys would be delivering all these papers, and then they'd have to wait for someone would have to notify them that there's another edition coming out.
Right.
Or maybe they were never notified, and it just happened when the stack dropped off in front of wherever their pickup, and they'd be left with a whole bunch of outdated papers on top of, new papers. Wow, a different world.
It is. It's absolutely amazing trying to think about that, and it's not like you can just text all these kids and say, "Hey, come on back to work. There's more papers there."
Yeah. However, Disney did make another movie about this, and I think they set it to music, so we can.
So
we'll save that for another.
So whoever wants to do the news or Newsies, wasn't it?
Newsies.
Newsies.
Yes.
Yeah. Whoever wants to do the Newsies minute, you do the research, and we'll listen in rapt fascination.
Wow. Well, let's get to the third part of this trilogy of newspapering.
Right.
We go from Neville, who's angrily tearing off his wig.
Yes.
And we get back to the Los Angeles Times with Flying Man Saves Pilot. That same Bowron aims axe at board.
Right.
Little column is there. And any idea where the 26 killed, 200 hurt in a Dixie tornado came
Yeah,
from?
so that was in Charleston, South Carolina. Also a little bit outdated at this point, but September 13 of 38 series, and it was interesting as I was digging into this. The term Dixie tornado usually refers to a massive outbreak of tornadoes all through sort of the South and Southeast in 1908. But this was a real event, and as far as I can tell, would have been a real headline for 30 years later, for September of 38, so closer to our movie time frame here. This series of 5 tornadoes went through Charleston, South Carolina, did ultimately kill 32 people, and sort of hundreds hurt. Last stats that I saw, 196, which I guess should be up to date since it happened 80 years ago. 196 homes were destroyed. At the time, it was estimated, at least one period article I dug up, it was estimated that it was about $2 million in damages, which would be about $35 million today. Wow. So pretty serious thing. But again, I kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit, digging around Dixie tornado, and that having a very specific connotation of this devastating event in 1908. And I think, well, they wouldn't be that far off. But then I remember, well, we got Marines in Vietnam. Maybe we're going back 30 years for the news. But no, this was a specific event about a month before the film takes place. So certainly reasonable.
I am wondering about the picture in the center there. Is that supposed to be a representation of the Rocketeer throwing a flower to the crowd? Because that's what it looks like to me. That's what, at least the Roche look of...
Yeah, it does look like a flower, doesn't it? But we see that same photo on which of the other 2 papers? Let me bring my pictures
think it
up.
might have been on Cliff's paper.
Well, no, it's not.
No?
It's a really similar photo, but it is a slightly different angle. I've never noticed this. On Cliff's paper, let me just double check it here. Come on, Internet. Don't fail me now. So, okay, Cliff's paper and Neville's paper have the same photo.
Oh, so this one is a unique one.
So, yeah, Howard Hughes' paper. Yeah, in the other 2 papers, he's much closer to the sort of the grandstand. Not necessarily physically, it's just he would have been further along that travel line. In the other papers, it looks like those are pennants or things like that. Or he's also... Oh, here's what it is. In looking at a photo of the of Cliff's newspaper, there's a checkered flag that's flying. And so on Cliff's paper, you see it much more clearly. It's that, 5 checked or type, I think of it as the Purina logo kind of flag.
Line, yeah.
So in this one, it's just waving enough that you're seeing it edge on. But as soon as you said flower, I thought, well, that's exactly what it looks like. But no, that's a checkered flag that's just sort of has been waving away.
That would be
from
romantic.
us.
I think the girls would have been right.
I think you're right. Yeah. And then but Jim, no matter what we do, he's never going to rescue us.
That's right.
Except for all the times that Billy Campbell comes on and rescues the show. So I guess metaphorically, but he never brings flowers.
So we're looking at this in the Howard Hughes hangar at Hughes Aircraft, and just judging from where they're located, it looks like they're right up against the door, the big hangar door.
Yeah, they would just about have to be. Just quickly as we pan up from the paper. You've got that, that burned out the vacuum cleaner, which we know is a Kenmore Commander with a Hoover badge on it, and then those side wings were sort of fictionally added to make it even look more sleek.
I just want to say we had reached out to the Vacuum Cleaner Museum, and we couldn't get a hold of anybody there. But this would probably be a great time to talk about vacuum cleaners.
It would have been wonderful. They're down there on Route 66 in St. James, Missouri, as my mother taught me to say it. So if anybody out there ever happens to drop in on the Vacuum Cleaner Museum, tell them we said hi and that we're sorry that we weren't able to reach them to get them on the show. Another nice little detail in the scene is that little FBI evidence tag.
Yeah,
that's tied to it there on the left.
And that laundry bag of saying Property Federal Bureau of Investigation underneath, where they just dropped that paper. And
we need some of those, by the way.
Yeah, Woolley and Fitch were carefully dressed up,
Yes,
and
and looking so chastened.
yeah, and they're wearing something at the time which was in fashion. They are wearing ties that are known as bar dexter. Those are bar dexter ties. Away bar dexter meaning that the stripe is up on the right hand side. If it were up on the left hand side, it would be known as bar sinister. So the bar dexter ties that they're both wearing are very much the style of 1938. And
That's
just,
that.
just
I had no idea. I've never noticed the tie stripe orientation before. That's
and
amazing.
if you'll notice that Howard is wearing the same type of bar
Right.
dexter tie.
Yeah. Well, the bigger, bolder stripes,
Yeah,
perhaps
and
befitting his status as a
Yeah.
zillionaire.
His minions are just wearing no Dexter tie.
Right? Yes, exactly. They're Dexter free,
Yeah.
or barless. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I love how
Disbarred.
high disbarred. Yes, ties that used to be lawyers. I love how high up the tie bar is too. And
Yeah.
that's just way up there. It's which you've got to have your tie bar that high to keep it above that ridiculously high waist. I guess
Yeah,
you've got to have a good distance there.
Amazing. And I do like that Howard has not one but two lapel holes, so he could wear twin boutonnieres.
Right.
It's
And
quite a
I can't recall from other shots of him, and we'll see them. We've seen them before. I think we'd see them again, but whether or not that's double-breasted or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So,
I have not.
we
We'll
can
have to.
come- we
We'll
can
have to
come back
tune
to
in
that.
a future episode. Although
Right.
it will be another day, so he might be in another suit. We'll see.
Oh, that's true.
So
And then, of course, he's surrounded by his top men in their
Yeah.
their disbarred ties. And for some reason, to me, the guy in the rear right, he would be
Yes.
stage left. Sort of I think he's probably the youngest of all of them. Everybody else is sort of their hair is slicked, or the balding guy. Everybody seems to be sort of appropriate and into it. The guy with the horn rimmed glasses in the background left is looking a little bit askance and maybe suspicious at this whole thing. But the guy in the background there on the right of the screen is just he looks a little out of place, and he looks so thoroughly disgusted with the whole situation. And I have no idea who he is, and would love to find out.
Yeah, and I keep getting the feeling that he's the guy that designed the look and feel of the X3. He would be the most disgusted by
Right,
how could
exactly.
How could you mistake a vacuum cleaner for an
Exactly,
X3?
for my work of art.
Yeah.
The magnificent Cirrus X3.
I do like the straight on camera approach on both of these scenes. You are whoever the people are being looked at. Howard is yelling at you.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Is using extreme sarcasm, and you are, and then you become Howard as you're looking at Fitch and Woolley as they are just trying not to, melt into the wall, just sink into the floorboards of, I don't want to be embarrassed like this.
And such a great line. Thanks to the diligence of the FBI, this particular vacuum cleaner will not fall into the wrong hands. And then, as you say, that he gives that line to us, and then we look at poor Woolley and Fitch, and we just sort of have to watch them look at each other and then look back at us as they take it.
Yeah, and for all their to heck with Hoover, they know this is going to get back to J. Edgar.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to go very well at all.
Right.
How many people do you need working on an autogyro? That's the other part that I was just trying to figure out. In the background, there's a guy with a clipboard. There's another guy sitting in the front. And, I mean, maybe they're adding anti-gravity shoes or something to the thing, but
Who knows?
it just doesn't seem like that much maintenance is required.
Now, and then speaking of that shot too, you've got three more white coated engineers sort of by the tail of the autogyro back off to the left side of the screen, and presumably they are reading the newspaper as well and sort of just finding out about the flying man. And you wonder what their take is.
Yeah.
Were they read into the Rocket Pack project, which presumably they would have been, and they're wondering about who this guy is flying their thing and what's he wearing on his head that makes him look like a hood ornament. But
Yeah, and how much non-disclosure did they do back then? I don't know.
right.
I mean, I would imagine that all of them were a bit, between Curtis and the Wright brothers and Hughes, they were probably all just, who have you been talking to? I don't know enough about when non-disclosures went as a thing.
Right. I would, from the hip, I would tend to guess that, it certainly would have existed at this point, but I could still certainly imagine, whether at this point in 38 that there would be a lot of sort of handshake agreements and sort of gentlemen's understandings. And then certainly I would get the sense that when you're working for Howard Hughes, you probably know on day one that there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff and you just will not talk about it.
Yeah, and I would assume that Howard Hughes probably pioneered the "you'll never work in this town again,"
right?
Kind of an attitude between Hollywood and aviation. He had all bases covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great logo on the side of that Hughes aircraft. It's just
yeah.
Some about Times Roman being able to put that on black on a white plane. Wow.
But yeah, just gorgeous. And that PCA-2 replica that for years I really had thought was a surviving example of an original in movie paint, but we've discussed before there are only two of those in existence, and one of them is here in Oshkosh, and the other one is down at the Henry Ford Museum, and it is definitely neither of those. Well done, mock-up.
Wow, yeah, stunning. Well, we'll leave the daytime world of Saturday, and go to the nighttime world of Bigelow Aircraft, which I'm assuming that this Bigelow office is the one that we see, that tower-like thing that's next to the hangar. It seems to be raised and above, and I just was wondering, the way that it looks, it seems like that's where you get in. It's upstairs.
Yeah, it has to be because Bigelow looks down, he sees the Pioneer Petroleum. Is it the truck or the sign?
Pioneer Petroleum sign.
That's right. That gives him the idea to call him the Rocketeer. And so, again, presuming this is the same office, which is, as far as I know, it would be.
Yeah, I would think. I wouldn't imagine that they'd want to build it over again.
Right.
But beautiful lighting, that yellowish kind of, it's night and there's something.
Right.
It's not comfort. It's not a comforting kind of nighttime.
No, and all the contrast with the slats.
Yeah, very
as
noir.
The light comes in, yes, absolutely. It's the sort of definition of noir.
Yeah, and you've got the two flatfoots coming in.
Right.
They're not gumshoes. They're flatfoots.
Yeah, they're definitely flatfoots.
Yeah, so the flatfoots are checking things out to talk to Bigelow, and
it doesn't look good.
No,
Bigelow's place is a mess. There's papers everywhere.
Yeah, somebody's been looking for something, says Fitch. So
right, kind of makes you wonder what happened here.
Yeah, made the day off. Wow. Well, we'll pause here for a little bit while Woolley and Fitch continue their investigation, which doesn't look like it's going to turn out very well. But we'll talk about this a bit more tomorrow. For folks who want to join in this conversation or point out some fashion tips that we may have missed, or maybe if your folks were in the newspaper business and you want to chat up some more, we've got a lot of social media areas where you can drop us a line. Try us out on Twitter at Airport Minute. Good grief. Rocketeer Minute is the place to go. So, Rocketeer Minute is our Twitter account. Follow us on Facebook. You can go to the Rocketeer Minute's Bulldog Cafe at facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. You can go to the great big site, rocketeerminute.com, where we've got all of these episodes, a lot of multimedia stuff that you can check on, a lot of things that our guests leave us that you can find all the links that we've been talking about with different guests are out there at rocketeerminute.com. So check out those back episodes and check our for future episodes that are out there. Also some cool swag from Amazon you can pick up. Please, if you haven't done this already, go to iTunes or go to Google Play, search for Rocketeer Minute, click subscribe, and then we'll never bother you. We'll bother you about this tomorrow, but we'll try to do it as quickly as possible. And if you could please leave us a great review, that always helps us. So come back here tomorrow, Thursday, and we'll see what happened to Mr. Bigelow on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.
Go get him, kid.